Hello everyone, my name is Gus.
Hi, I'm Woody.
Today we have a video that has been requested a few times. This is someone who apparently lost a GoPro in a lake, like his local lake. And he was always like thinking about it, like, oh man, there was so much good footage in there. If there was only a way to go get it. And then he decided, I'm going to learn how to dive and go get it.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Let's give it a shot.
Go dogs.
Absolutely. And this, by the way, is a smaller video of the original one. The original one is longer. I just edited down to concise.
Thank you.
Make it make it smaller. All right. Anyway, here we go.
This is me about to jump in an ice-cold lake to find a GoPro I lost 7 years ago. And
Already
although my
ready to
suit may
stop
look
it.
cozy, trust me when I say that I'm about to freeze. But to understand why I would put myself through this, we have to go back to when I just turned 15.
It's getting after you.
As an aspiring YouTuber who'd just scrounged up enough yard work,
By the way, those were
birthday money for a
Pop-Tarts.
new GoPro, I was
I'd
ecstatic to
mention
finally
that.
get my hands on a camera fit to capture my passion of extreme sports.
Thought it was like
the pinnacle
hash
of which
browns.
for me was cliff jumping. So when it came time for our yearly family vacation and I got the chance to film jumping off of actual cliffs, it felt like the stars had aligned.
That looks
That's like
awesome.
Lanier.
I spent the entire first day capturing all
Is
the
that
new
like-
tricks I wanted to
No.
try,
Yeah.
and I even got my family
looks
to
like
jump
it.
with me. Then, as this memorable day was coming to an end during my final jump, I came up out of the water and noticed my GoPro was no longer on my handle. My heart sank.
I'm always so scared that the GoPro is gonna somehow fall out, even though there's like no way.
I instantly went beneath the surface to see
way,
my
huh?
beloved camera rapidly sinking with all of my footage. I swam down towards it as hard as I possibly could, and I kid you not, I will never forget this. My fingers grazed it. When I came up out of the water, as my
Wow.
mother put it, you would have thought someone had died. I don't remember if I cried, but everyone on that boat definitely got to see through my teenage tough guy persona. If you're wondering how I'm showing this footage with my GoPro lost at the bottom of a giant lake, well, I can explain. Once we figured out that the water was 65 feet deep and there was no chance of getting the camera, my mother, being the wonderful person that she is, drove me an hour to the nearest store where I got a new GoPro in the form of a loan from her. And the next day, in support of her heartbroken son, she let us return to all of the spots and film the jumps again. Mom, you're the best, and I hope that I've since paid you back. Although that trip turned out fine, my inner 15-year-old has always wondered if there was any way I could get that GoPro back. So when I was recently invited on a cliff jumping trip to Hawaii, I realized a few days before my flight that this could be my chance to learn to scuba dive and finally
buddy.
be able to search for it. I
Cool.
immediately drove to the nearest dive shop here in Kansas, which I did not expect to exist, and signed up for some lessons. I just signed up for scuba diving and I leave for Hawaii in 2 days.
Is that the state you couldn't name 3 cities in, or is that a different state?
I
No.
don't know which Kansas he's
Yeah,
talking about.
Kansas City you didn't know was in Missouri. So just a reminder.
Now, I want you to pay attention to the timing here. He says, I'm leaving to Hawaii in 2 days, and I just signed up for scuba. So you teach the open water class. I teach open
Well,
water class
maybe-
as well.
Maybe you got certified in Hawaii, the open water portion.
Okay.
All right.
What am I doing, bro? Luckily, since it's 30 degrees out, they can get me in first thing tomorrow, but I still have to do the entire online class by tonight. I stayed glued to my computer until I completed the course in what had to be record time, and then left early the next morning for my final exam. Somehow, I passed
Cool.
on the first try, which meant all that was left to do before Hawaii was my pool dives. After getting in my wetsuit and putting on all the heavy gear for the first time, I knew I probably looked ridiculous, but I kind of felt like a Navy SEAL or something. It was pretty cool. When it was time to get in the water, I walked up to the deep end, did the giant stride they taught me, and was officially
Not bad.
scuba diving. And although I was just sitting in a pool, the fact that I was breathing under the freaking water had me already starting to love this.
Nice.
The very next morning, I packed up my new scuba gear and set out on my 17 hours of travel.
Can you finish all the skills in one day like that? The confined water skills? That's the one thing I thought. It's like in one day, he just...
You could.
Let's say like Monday,
What?
he did the online class. Tuesday, all the skills. Wednesday morning, he's flying to Hawaii.
Yeah, I think the open water dives, you can only do a maximum of 3 per day per standards.
The open water dives is 2, I think, per day. But
Three,
he's,
you can do 3
Really?
training, open water training dives per day. I think if you have multiple classes, it may extend one more.
is this like a patty thing?
It's everybody. Every single agency is standard on that.
Yeah.
So confined water, in theory, you could knock the whole thing out.
In one day. That's a lot.
I
A
mean,
lot of skills.
you'd be there all day, probably until the evening.
Yeah,
'Cause
he's doing the patty, by the way. I'm not a patty
same,
instructor.
exactly the same. I am. It's almost identical.
Okay.
Once I'd landed yet again, my instructor got me from the airport, brought us straight to the boat, and after signing my life away, I was ready to do this for real. Oh my god. Look at that. Look at that. Well, I guess here we go.
Monday in Kansas,
over here.
Wednesday in Hawaii. Dives.
2, 1.
Now, how is he
To
recording?
get my
though?
lifetime
I thought you were
scuba
not supposed
certification,
to.
I needed to complete 4 separate dives. The first one
Somebody
started
else
out
can.
with some basic skills on the surface, but then suddenly took a scary turn when I was told I had to go over 40 feet to the bottom. None of the things I learned in that 6-foot deep pool could prepare me mentally for this descent.
I
After
get
20
that
minutes,
first dive.
half my oxygen tank, and difficulties fixing my intense ear pain from the pressure, I eventually made it and took my first step onto the sand. But since I took so long to
Wow.
get down, I had to go right back up. So that
First
was the
dive.
end of my
Dive
dive.
1, you know.
I made it
Dive
down
one.
faster during my second dive, but because of my ear pain, I was still a bit too slow, and I ended up stuck watching the other divers go get to play with a sea turtle. By the time I'd made it down and finished my drills, the turtle was gone. And since this was my last dive of the day, I realized that I'd missed my chance.
At least the instructor doesn't
Well,
have
it's
split
6
fins.
a.m. and time for more scuba diving. I guess every diver gets up at the crack of dawn. Great! The next day came dive number 3. This time we headed to a beach where I'd be doing my first shore dive. Luckily, my ears felt completely fine today. I must have finally cleared my sinuses earlier.
That's not right.
Sure, if that's
In less
necessary.
than 10 minutes under the water, we found some of the cast of SpongeBob,
Wow, see? Better trim
a
already,
giant
look.
school of fish, and whatever the heck this thing is. But just then, my instructor tapped me on the shoulder.
Nice. Yes.
So exciting. There's 2 of them.
I mean, the first time you see that, it's amazing.
Getting to swim right alongside these majestic creatures was surreal. I instantly forgot about anything that was worrying me as I watched them glide through the water right in
what
front of
scuba
my
does
eyes.
to you.
I was completely entranced. But during the mask draining exercise that followed, the worries came back. We were 20 feet underwater when I tried to drain my mask by blowing out of my nose, but I accidentally breathed in and began choking on the salt water.
That happens.
Yeah.
Mask clearing's
I
tricky.
eventually got all the water out of my mask, but not my throat.
How you feeling? I'm feeling so good.
So I had to go ahead and end dive number 3.
There were turtles playing with each other in there. Also, when I flooded my mask at the end, felt like I was going to die for a second. But cool.
But he killed it.
Yeah, he stayed
With all
really
of my
calm.
training tasks
I agree
now
with her.
complete, we got to spend our final dive just exploring and soaking it all in.
That's true. And Patty, your final dive, there's like no skills if you do everything else right.
Yeah. The always super
Your
important
boy is
Buddha
scuba
decision.
certified for life. And falling over as I epically get. Don't let your ego get too big.
I thought these were going to be my last dives in Hawaii, but knowing that I was going to be in a cold, dark lake soon made me want to get just a bit more practice by doing a night dive. And amid the boat ride out to the spot,
Good.
I got a pretty good feeling I was
guy's
going to
just
get to
getting
see some
after
new
it.
creatures. While there was still daylight, we went down to check out the underwater campfire area where we would hopefully get to see some
Look at that
giant
bicycle.
manta rays later. Then, after venturing out to my new furthest depth of 65 feet, we actually came across a smaller one that came up to say hi.
Oh my god.
That's beautiful. Yes.
Once the sun had finished setting, I did my last descent of the trip and headed for the campfire. What I saw next was legitimately one of the most amazing things I've ever gotten to experience. A swarm of 7 absolutely massive
Feeding
mantas
station.
spanning up to 16 feet wide were flying just above our heads.
So
The
that's
way
a
they
famous
moved seemed as
dive
if-
in Hawaii where there's an area, I think it's in Kona, and everybody holds their lights up, and then the mantas come through a cleaning station because all the little fish clean them. It's literally why they're there. It's really fascinating to watch, but they bring a lot of brand new divers there because it's like 30-foot dive at night.
Go down on your
Go
knees.
down, get
watch.
down low, and look up. Hold your light up.
They were putting on a well-rehearsed, harmonious performance. It was insane. Look, he just did a backflip.
Barrel
and
roll.
they were so big that the force of their wing-like fins would knock me over when I wasn't holding onto a rock. The 30 minutes we got to spend with these angelic animals flew by, but it was certainly something that I will never forget. After
so
researching the depths of where I lost my GoPro, it seemed that luck was still very much on my side. The lake's deepest part is 220 feet deep. This part is 70.
Lucky.
I am gonna find this GoPro. But there was still one major obstacle. Finding someone willing to do this with me. I spent several days calling multiple dive shops and professional divers, but unsurprisingly,
Cold at
they all
70
declined.
feet, but
The scuba diving man with 40 years of experience that sounded pretty promising just called me and said that the mission was too dangerous and that he needs to back out.
What?
temperature
I should
maybe.
tell you something, son.
Regardless, I didn't make it this far just to abandon the dive and accept defeat.
We're gonna dive to 70 feet in a lake. Too dangerous. Can't do that.
There had to be a reason. I'm not going to put any assumptions in, but temperature is about all I can think of. It's cold.
Oh yeah.
So I'd be in a dry suit because I think at the beginning it showed him in a wetsuit trying this.
I mean, he's a brand new diver, so
Chilly.
I was already in way
But they
too
do
deep.
certify you. You can get certified as a brand new diver in a dry suit.
And so I dialed the number of the last pro scuba diver I'd been told about.
Hello?
Hey, is this Neil?
It is.
Hi Neil, this is Tanner Brungart. This is the moment I realized just how absurd this plan was sounding coming out of my mouth. And so I was wondering if that sounds of any interest to you.
Wow.
yeah, it's a lot.
Okay, I think I'm gonna say yes.
Let's go! Heck yeah, man. Super excited.
Well, to Neil.
sounds like I'm gonna be in a cold lake with a stranger. Well, the perseverance had paid off.
Good for
But since
him,
Neil
man.
had
Made
holiday
it
plans
happen.
coming up, we only had a small window to make this happen. So I quickly learned how to use my dad's fishing boat and got fitted for the thickest wetsuit I could rent before
Okay.
we met the very next morning and got everything ready for the 5-hour road trip.
So I gotta ask, are you really scuba diver if you don't scuba dive in November?
That's true. Are you? You're probably just a smart one. This is what we're gonna bring the GoPro back in. Hopefully.
He's in a dry suit.
yeah. He's also on a rebreather.
Alright, so he is in a dry suit, so only his hands and a
Chopped
little bit of
or
his
an op-
face
Yes,
are wet.
you're
Everything
right.
else on him is dry in his suit. Everything on me is going to be wet because this is a wetsuit. I'm not qualified to use one
And
of
it's
those.
too
it's gonna
big
be
on
a little
you.
worse for me.
Oh, it's already cold.
Definitely.
Oh, it's so cold.
That's
Man, this is going to
rough in that big
Alright,
wetsuit.
well, before I put all my scuba gear on, might as well hit the cliff jump, right? Actually, by hitting the cliff jump, I'll know exactly where I landed last time, and then we'll just go straight down from there. Woo! 3, 2, 1.
Some cool footage. Good job, dude.
Well, it took 7 years, but I was finally doing it. Aside from the freezing temperature, we felt optimistic right off the bat because the bottom was made up of rocks like we had hoped. Everything was covered in grime, but it was still better than something like mud where we'd probably never stand a chance. We laid a line across the area where I had landed and began searching back and forth, slowly going
Very
down.
smart.
The first thing we came across, despite checking before I jumped, was another giant pointed tree a few feet away from where I just landed. If any of you go cliff jump, I hope that you'll be smarter than me. I also hope you'll be smarter than what seems to be cliff jumping's main demographic, the drunken uncles. You know, the same guy that dumps the tubing children at 60 miles an hour. By the looks of it, I think everybody had the same uncle. As we began to get deeper, the light and visibility was starting to get worse, but I did get to see one fish, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it definitely topped the manta rays.
What?
Then I saw this log that I thought was a giant animal about to kill me. By now, we'd already been searching for about 45 minutes, and although I was really cold, that wasn't the main issue. We had descended to the point of complete darkness, and to make matters worse, there was way more grime down here, which made it impossible to see even an inch in front of us.
Yeah,
I
like-
couldn't see or communicate
are
with Neil
brutal.
in any way at this point, and I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty terrifying. While trying to remain calm and rational in this very unfamiliar circumstance, I realized that the visibility wouldn't improve unless I stopped stirring up the dirt. So in an effort to do that, I did what I was trained to do by adding a little bit of air to my vest until I began to lift up. But since I couldn't see anything, I didn't realize that I had put in too much air. And because air expands as pressure is alleviated, I began to rise faster and faster until I popped up at the surface in a matter of
From
seconds.
40.
I'm guessing the sudden change in pressure ended my
That's
GoPro
not
recording,
good.
but I do have Neil's perspective after he ascended at a safe rate.
I inflated my VCD too much, and then I couldn't see anything, and then all of a sudden I was at the top. Thankfully it wasn't that deep. How deep were we?
41 feet.
41 feet? Jesus. Yeah, my chest hurts a little bit.
How dangerous is it to come up that fast?
Pretty dangerous.
Because
Yep.
I kind of hurt. Like, I don't know what I should do. My fucking chest hurts.
What I would be concerned about is an air embolism. When you come up too fast, if you're not breathing, you can rupture your lungs.
He's
How
right.
bad is it?
It's not that bad of pain. It's not the worst. I
All right.
suppose.
You want to get out?
Yeah.
See what happens?
Yeah.
Probably. A
The
good
chest
idea.
could also be because you're cold.
I don't think he has an embolism.
Like, I
You
literally
would
got
be
this feeling, like, as I was coming up and I was lost, I was like, dude, is this how I die? Like, where am I going? Like, this, I genuinely thought that. I was freaking out.
That's scary.
Well, I guess it's successful because I didn't die, but he's still going to search for a couple hours down there. Maybe we'll come away with the GoPro, but I'm not getting back in. Once I was out of my wetsuit and finally got warmed up, we waited eagerly until Neil resurfaced with the verdict.
Let me hand this up to you. There's some goodies in there, but mostly trash.
That's up to you. If you're too cold, then we can get out and we can head back.
Well, I'm starting to get pretty cold.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
hands,
Yeah.
I mean,
Even with a
that's
dry
okay.
suit,
Yeah,
you'll
that's
get
fine.
I feel
It's
better.
heated.
Fine, dude.
Well, I guess there you have it. Despite all of our time spent training, coming here, and giving it our best shot, we were just going to have to accept defeat and let my younger self down. Or at least that's what I thought until Neil said something suspicious.
Well, I don't know. You can go through that. There's a couple of... Okay, maybe two neat things in there.
Okay, let's check out the
Yes,
neat
he
thing.
found
And
it.
that's when I realized that he had pulled the greatest prank of all time. JK, yeah, we didn't find it. But hey, it was in the bag of goodies
shoot.
anyway.
Roller coaster of emotions.
A pair of shades.
Disgusting flop.
Oh my god.
It's rock hard. A nice water shoe.
Ooh.
A nice old
Oh, that's
looking.
Kind of artsy.
At least we did a little bit of cleanup.
I almost lost another GoPro for you.
Oh yeah.
It slipped off.
Oh shoot. There we go. I'll just use that footage. We found it. Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Definitely the coolest thing.
Rusted shut.
New title.
7 years ago, I lost my favorite knife, and we found it.
WD-40.
Exactly.
All jokes aside, of course, I would have loved to find the GoPro and see if the footage was somehow still on it, but how could I be bummed when this video idea has allowed
we
me
should
to
just
hang
go
out
and
where
find it
humans
for him.
shouldn't even be able to go in
Right?
what
It's
literally
there.
feels like
I don't know
another
where that
dimension.
is. I
Scuba
thought it
diving
looks like
was
Lakeland.
something I was definitely
We can connect with
intimidated
them
by at
in
the
Tanner.
beginning, but I'm very
And
thankful I didn't
tell
turn
us where it
back,
is.
and I'm looking forward
Dry
to doing it
suit
again as soon
rebreathers,
as
and we
possible.
do
Just
some
maybe
grid pattern.
not in this.
You know, a couple things. First of all, they did some smart stuff. I really am pretty impressed. And the biggest thing I'm impressed at, everybody, is that he was willing to say, I'm not going back down. A lot of people would be like, yeah, I'm going to push it. You know, I'm okay. But you know what? The guy was smart.
Yep.
Came up too fast. I'm feeling cold. Even the other guy acknowledged, you know, feeling too cold. That's really important. I like that a lot. These guys are super humble.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And the guy who he found, Neil, he looked like he knew what he was doing, laying line, doing his thing. So that was good.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously, there's no guarantee that if we go there, we're going to find a GoPro, but I think it would be cool to
I
look
mean, we
around.
could really strategically lay out.
Yeah. Those are my
great
favorite
pattern.
dives, by the way. My favorite dives are, you know, number one is killing lionfish. That's number one on the list. But number two are the dives that have a purpose.
Like a mission.
There's a mission. There's something to do. I love those dives. You know, when I started diving, I used to dive at a local quarry here, and every month they would hide a glass sculpture of an octopus in the quarry somewhere. And whoever found it got like a free t-shirt or a free towel or whatever. It was cool. So the first of the month you would go, and there was always a mission. And so you would always do like 2 tank dives, you know, just 2 dives, all tank, just looking for this damn thing.
It's fun.
Everywhere in the quarry, right? And those were my favorite dives.
Cool.
Than just diving around looking at stuff for no reason. So yeah, good job for this guy.
I think so. And congrats. He's got certified.
He
He had a
certified for
purpose,
sure.
and he did it. I mean, this guy really made it happen, right? He I'm going to get certified, and then he really did. And then he found somebody who didn't give up. He's a good guy. I like that. I like this one.
Absolutely. And he didn't push it past the limits like the guy we reacted to that went to 170 feet trying to spear fish. And if you haven't seen this video, I'm going to leave it right here. Some people just
Too much. Don't push it.
take it easy.
Bye, everybody.